thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, and is the kingdom, power, and glory now forever. Amen. And in the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit. Today we continue with Genesis. If you have any questions, let's start with the questions, and then we'll go through Genesis. I'm going to use my phone for the sharing the screen, and we'll go through the chapter. I think it's chapter 38. Is it 39?
Yeah, now خلصنا 38.
Okay.
Or the middle here, maybe, and the end of 38.
Okay. So we're at 39. Now we're back to the story of the narrative of Joseph. And we will read through this. Anahi, do you want to read for us?
Okay. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites, who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he refused, and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" So it was as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her, to lie with her or to be with her. But it happened about this time, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought in to us a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it happened, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside." So she kept his garment with her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with words like these: "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me. So it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside." So it was, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, "Your servant did to me after," that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph took him and put him into prison, a place where prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to his hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. It was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper.
Very, very good. First, I want to say that we are in the part of the story where Joseph actually is a slave, and he's taken from his brother's hands and driven to Egypt with a coat of a slave. He took the coat of many colors, give it to his father, dipped in blood, and maybe torn a little bit from here and there to show that an animal killed him. Now, here is interesting thought or a question. What keeps repeating? A theme that keeps repeating in this chapter. Forget about the slavery, forget about the temptation. There's a theme that keeps repeating. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. There's insistence in the writing in the Holy Scriptures about one thing that keeps repeating from beginning to end.
Success.
Joseph was with the Lord, with God. Right?
So that's true. So you both said it's the success and that the Lord was with him and he was a successful man. Now, let me ask you a question. If you and me are in a situation when we were sold, God forbid, but it can happen, sold in a very bad situation, like you've been demoted from your job. Let's imagine things like that. So the closest to me, being betrayed by your family, and now in a place that you really don't think you belong to it. You were very spoiled by your father. You were your family and life treated you very well, and all of a sudden, you find yourself deprived and almost naked of all kinds of favors. Would you call that success? I wouldn't call it success. And even add to this, you end up finding yourself in prison. Let's say you were the best prisoner ever. Would you call that success? There's got to be something here. I mean, don't read the story and just go with it because it's the Bible. Ask the question. Be brave enough to ask. What are you talking about, Lord? The man is, for goodness sake, is a slave. And he was not a regular person. He was the beloved of his rich father who spoiled him big time. What do you call success? This is a chapter that's very weird if you look at it. So he's sold, but he was successful. He was imprisoned, but he was successful. Now, tell me about that. Someone has to tell me something. Comfort me, because this is it's really annoying.
It reminds me of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay. What is success in this case? And how a person can be successful in a status like this? Let's say that you got fired from your job and you're given the least of all the jobs possible. And your family abandoned you. They don't want to even talk to you. And they betrayed you. They used you. Can you tell me what is the success definition here? And how can it happen?
Maybe people liked him.
Okay.
The
So
Lord
he
was
found
with-
favor.
Yeah. The master saw that the Lord was with him, so the master liked him, and then the prison guard liked him.
Right.
So he gave
Let's
him.
start with this. And the Lord was with Joseph. And I want to fast forward to Gideon, so you can make a comparison, because this seems like a theme that keeps coming back. Gideon, in the book of Judges, and there is this theme. Everybody knows where is it? Is it chapter 9? No, that's Abimelech. Let me see.
6, I think.
6, okay. Yeah, that's 6. You're right. '11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abizarite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the wine press. Why? And I keep saying this: wine press is underground. You don't thresh wheat. Threshing wheat is to allow the wind to carry the hay, and the wind is not strong enough to carry the kernels. So the kernels will drop to the ground by their weight, but the hay will fly with the breeze. But to bring it to a wine press that is underground, it means you're not going to have wind enough to carry the hay. We were basically trying to separate the hay from the grain. But this is a very hard work to do underground because he was afraid to hide it in order to hide it from the Midianites. Very hard work. He was sweating in a summer, because you do this in a summer day or something that you would have to thresh that. And the angel came and looked at him, entertaining himself, like sitting there under the tree, watching Gideon work very hard, sweating. And I can imagine it's like a comedy. The angel sits there with crossing legs, with a staff in his hand, playing in the ground, and looking at Gideon working to bone, to sweat. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." He's greeting him, So Gideon said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us?" So the angel is saying to him, "The Lord is with you." But Gideon doesn't see it. He does not. So that idea of the Lord be with someone has certain expectation in the mind of the regular person, even the mind of a judge like Gideon. He says, if the Lord is with us, then we should be victorious. We should be, on the top of society. We should be rich. We should be comforted. We should be. But neither Gideon nor Joseph were in that status. So what does it mean for the Lord to be with Joseph? That's what I want to ask, that we should actually find it. What does it mean for the Lord to be with Joseph? Think about it, because this is something you need to ask yourself too. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, but yet a slave. The Lord was with Gideon because the angel told him, "The Lord is with you." And Gideon didn't think that it was anything that has a meaning in his mind. This is baloney, he says that to the angel. Okay. Any idea?
I have an idea, Father. Okay.
Go ahead, Teddy.
I think the success here is that the Lord has inspired Joseph to be in the world but not of the world, as mystics say. So he's really in, like, his mind and his heart are really not there, like not of the world. Like he's just doing what the world requires him to do.
Excellent. Very, very nice. I like that a lot. So outside, it looks like he is defeated. He's conquered. That's only outside. But you know where God was? He was hidden in Joseph, inside of him. That is what we call grace. In the heart of Joseph, he was not conquered. He was not defeated. God was supporting him from within. So that success we're talking about is not an outwardly success that people will actually search for and try to find. In his heart, he was not defeated. His brothers didn't really touch him inside of him. They did only strip him from his outer garment. And the boldness of Joseph and the courage and the feeling of this is temporary and God is there, You know, there is something about, they say this, and I think I've heard it a few times. They say that the bottom fell out, when the bottom of someone fell out. Have you heard that before? Like somebody, God forbid, with cancer, and they give up. They just give up. They are defeated with them. They don't want to fight anymore. There's nothing to live for. So there is no spirit of despondency, of destituteness, or giving up. There's no despair. That's the word. There's no despair in the heart of Joseph. He knows in his deepest heart of heart that this is all temporary, and as people call it, a test, that God will reward him back and everything will turn back to normal if he just have to stand his ground and not to allow thoughts of despair and evil thinking to start sitting in. Joseph is an example of that solidarity, of that firmness. There's firmness in Joseph. There's temptations that's going to come on him from different aspects. And he's shown that he had not even allowed his heart to receive any of it. That's where we call it the Lord was with Joseph. Sometimes we're being superficial and children, and we want to see things happening outside. But this is not Joseph at all. So he said, this is temporary. It's a test. And he asked himself, now I'm a slave. That's a fact. Now I'm a slave. What does the Lord expect from me as a slave? If he allows me to be a slave, if he put me in this place, which is temporary, what am I supposed to do to be with God and not to let him leave me? I would be the best slave, the honest slave. I would seek the prosperity of my master. I would actually clear my mind and not allow ideas to come in so I can do the best for the house of my master. Only people who have enough energy and peace within themselves, they can plan and decide to execute a plan. Apparently, he stayed long time, 17-year-old boy or a teenager, who is at a foreign place. He even doesn't speak the language. You know the struggle that Joseph would have to even communicate with those people. But he used all his energy. He harnessed his mental power and physical power to make sense of the chaos that he was in. You know, this doesn't come easy. Even with us, our best abilities does not get over something like this. But it shows that he had peace. He had peace in his heart. And he kind of resolved, surrendered from the night that he spent with his brothers in the well. And we're going to know later that he had actually cried, screamed, brothers, get me out. Don't do this. Our father will be heartbroken. Don't think of me. You might be hating me, but don't do this to our father. And I think from that night, at the end of it, he had made a resolution that he would accept his fate and surrender himself to God. And when he did this, I think he started to free himself to do the work. Right? He was successful. From that point of view, he is successful. Not in accomplishing things for his master, but actually successful in conquering despair. That's where the success is. I think this is where the success is. That it's all internal. You have to look for it to find it. And then it was obvious outside that the circumstances are gloomy and dark, but the master can see. There's something very special about this person. How can any slave do this? Slaves, by the way, they're usually bitter. They are not, they don't see them accomplishing things. They do exactly what they're told to do and barely get by. They do, enough to get by, but not to think about things and to think of them as their own. That's very special. So that they knew that there's something much more powerful at work in Joseph than a regular slave. And because of that, everything he used to do was successful, prosper. There's no, I want to say something. Sometimes people look at this and say they ignore it and they brush it off as magic. God has done magic through Joseph. No, it was not magic. It was hard, very hard work and planning that takes the energy of a person to work on day and night. So he would study the crops, he would study the house manners, he put rules, he would oversee that everything and make suggestions. And when his suggestions were followed, the things were working. There was a lot of work that Joseph had to do. Imagine. This was not magic. Joseph was not just sleeping there, doing nothing, and God was doing the work for him. It's nonsense. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. From another point of view, too, Joseph was supposed to, if you look at I like always the bird's eye view, the very big picture. Joseph is going to take over Egypt. All right? Joseph is going to be the leader at one point, and everyone in Egypt would listen to him. What's truth about leaders? What should happen for a leader? How should you prepare a leader for a place? Where do you begin? Where do you put him to start? Think about it.
You make them responsible for little.
Exactly. You have them start from the beginning, from the lowest step in the hierarchy. By the time they become a leader, what would they gain?
They've done all the jobs, so they know how to.
Absolutely. They know all the details involved, from being a slave all the way to the top of the ladder. So this is, on one aspect, training him to be a leader. That's God's way, by the way. He had Moses start as a shepherd in the wilderness, meditating on nature, communicating with nature before he spoke to him. He had the Lord, his son, starting as a child in Israel for 30 years, not open his mouth, and grow up as a Jewish boy in a Jewish community. In all the big leaders, David, a shepherd in a remote corner of Bethlehem, nobody really cared about him, and growing up in a very unknown house and fighting with the king, or not fighting actually, running away from the king for maybe another 15 years or so before he is crowned as a king and is going to lead Israel. So you would know that the way of the Lord is not the way of the world. There is no magic in this. God is going to put people under time, and he's going to teach them under time. So they're going to have to take classes, and they're going to have to understand everything. Sometimes the lessons have to be repeated. And that's how they learn. That's how we learn. There is no magic wand that God zap anybody with to make them leaders. So this is important because before he manages the kingdom, he has to manage Potiphar's house, and he has to manage a prison. I would say, why a prison? So, okay. So he goes to the prison. Why a prison? Why would God, from this point of view, why would God put Joseph in prison to make him a leader? Why a prison? Why Potiphar's house? Maybe I understand. This is a leader, many slaves and servants, and dignitaries would come through the house. He would be, visited by Potiphar's family, or I'm sorry, by Pharaoh's family, or he's going to deal with the authority. But what about the prison? He's going to be in charge of prisoners. Why prisoners? Gets even worse. Prisoners.
I mean, I would say maybe to make him compassionate, but I feel like he already was
Mm-hmm.
compassionate.
What are prisoners? What are prisoners? Have you seen the people that deal with prisoners, the officers or the wardens?
They're rough.
Very rough. So basically, he's exposed to the worst type of Egyptians. Not that the rest of the Egyptians are okay, but the worst type. Like he's going to deal with the thieves, the murderers, the burglars, the violent. What is there? Why would God want him to deal with it? As a leader, you would have to deal with those people. If you don't know how to deal with those people, you cannot manage a very high rank. So to send that person to be a leader, you have to send them to a place where there's rough people. I have an example from contemporary life, how the Queen of England and the kings and the princes in England, where do they send their kids to be educated and disciplined?
The military?
You send them to the military. The next best place to the prison, where they deal with rough dealings. Because if they are going to prepare them to be kings and leaders, they have to deal with the tough rules and regulations under very high pressure. So God, as a royal king, sent his son Joseph to the school that he would learn to deal with rough situations and rough personalities, not your average person that you deal with every day. This is how leaders are being done, by the way. If we don't do this, I don't expect in leadership to be successful. I don't expect it. So this is from God's point of view. Of course, at the time, Joseph is not seeing this, but yet he's kind of let himself be with God. That's why here is the success. It's almost he's in class. Classes are not a place for achievement, is a place of being educated and disciplined and to be learned. The success is measured by how much a person is able to understand, assimilate the material. So here is successful from the point of view of the Lord, as Joseph is accepting the education and learning and doing the best he could in the circumstances. This is not a success that is out about achieving projects. I don't think so, because there's no success of being a slave or a prisoner from our point of view. So the second thing, when this happens, when the person is actually seeing God's hands in everything, is grace. People around that person would see something very special in him. They see that he's not subdued, he's not pushed down, he's not despairing. He's actually excited about his work, going about it with energy, with lively person, not dead. He's not pushed to do anything. And something for us to think about. This is what we should do in all circumstances, knowing that everything comes from the hand of God. St. Paul said it. And we know all things works together to the best of those who love God. And I'm sure he meditated on Joseph many times. So wherever he goes, the leaders of the place will use him as the right hand, as the man of authority. And what you can actually started to think about things that what I want to say, virtues that Joseph had for a person in leadership to love him. What do you think Joseph had a virtue for the people to have favor in the sight of people? What would he be like?
Patience, peace, compassion.
Why would not the warden of the prison not be threatened by someone like Joseph, that he would feel like he would take over his job? In addition to patience and peace.
Humility.
Absolutely. I think he was very humble. He was very humble and obedient, and he would voice his opinion and counsel without threatening anyone. He was not a threat to those people. None of them thought of him as a threat. Otherwise, they would have been a big jealousy and envy. And there is this overseer that keeps returning. You know what an overseer is in the New Testament? What's the word overseer mean? Any idea what's an overseer? Keeps coming again and again and again. The word overseer is a bishop. The bishop is an overseer. So Joseph, wherever he goes, he's a bishop. And the Lord was with him. And here we have, of course, he's an image of Christ, the overseer of our souls and the shepherd of our souls. He's an image of Christ. And him going to be a slave in the world, putting on a humanity like any slave, while he is the beloved son of the Father, he is completely secure within himself. He is completely dependent on the Father for whatever happens. And he sees God's hand in everything that happened to him, especially him with prophecies made about him. I'm talking about Christ. So first, sometimes the fathers would do this. As Jesus is born, this is the first mission, to be stripped of his glory and sent to the world as a slave. The second one is the death, when he's stripped again of his garment, and the second garment, which is a garment of a slave, humanity. So what's prison? If the first mission to Egypt is a mission to the world. So we're going the symbol and the fact. The first thing is Jesus stripped of his glory to become a slave. So the second stripping, when the woman held the garment in her hand and he's gone out naked, where is that? And he's going to prison. And there he's going to be an overseer too. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. What's stripping of his humanity mean? Or stripping of his, not humanity, of his human life? It says death. So he was born and took off the garment of divinity to put on the garment of, here the garment of divinity, not taking divinity, taking the glory, the beauty of the divine, his glory, his power. And he put on the weak image of a servant. That's what St. Paul said in the Philippians. But then, and eventually he obeyed even to the death on the cross. So the second stripping is his death on the cross. So what's prison? St. Peter would say, he went to the prison of souls. He went down to Hades, the place of the souls that was. And here we have a problem. Many of the Protestant believes that there is no place that Jesus didn't go to Hades, and they do this as a reaction to the Catholic idea of the purgatory. So to cancel purgatory altogether, they deny Hades. But there's a lot of that in St. Peter and in St. Paul. St. Paul said he didn't go up first, he went down first to the places under the belly of the earth. And Jesus himself said that he would spend 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth, not in the grave, not in the tomb. And then St. Paul said he didn't go up, he had to go first down. St. Peter would say he first went and preached to the spirits in prison. Jesus had to go down to the spirits in prison. In our liturgy, we say he descended to Hades through the cross. So there, he was also a bishop, an overseer, someone who knocked down the gates and went in with glory to find the chosen ones that they actually going to go with him to paradise. We will talk about the dreams, which was very significant, actually, the dreams of the two people. Now, I want to go back to the woman. And the woman in the beginning was very possessive. Being a good-looking young man, 17 years old, and maybe he's a little fairer, and she had a crush, as you call it today, had lusted after him, contemplated and meditated of him and her having intimacy. Seems like Joseph never actually allowed that thought to come into him. And this is one aspect that I needed all of us to think about. I'll tell you why. Because once a person, a human being, man or woman, allows lust to come in, they're already defeated. There is no way a teenager in his age would think about this a couple of times that he will not agree to it. Let me stop sharing because my phone died. Okay. There would be no way that a person who would have thought about this a couple of times at this stand. So the only advice that St. Paul would give from the New Testament, actually, he says, shall we remain in sin so that grace would abound? He said, certainly not. Or don't you know that as many of us were baptized unto Christ, were baptized unto his death? We were buried with him by baptism. This is you're one with Christ, and Christ is in you. He said in the Galatians, as many as has been baptized unto Christ has put on Christ. How did I put on Christ? In his Christmas, in his baptism, in his miracles? No. We have put on Christ in his death. What does that mean? That we're dead to sin. When sin comes to visit us, we're not supposed to negotiate. We're not supposed to even think about it. We're not supposed to even to flinch. As a dead person respond to a stimulus. If you go to a dead person and pinch a dead person, would they flinch? No. Would you go and say a joke to a dead person? Would they smile? No. If you take a dead person, would they laugh? No. What would a dead person do? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is nothing happening inside a dead person. Not inside, not outside. And then if there's nothing inside, nothing will happen outside. So there is a very solid wall to temptation in that person. And that's St. Joseph. I mean, Joseph, the son of Jacob. He had not responded to the thought. He had not given a chance, which is amazing in the Old Testament to find that. While just a chapter earlier, we saw what happened to Judah, his brother. Judah gave in totally. He was like desperate. An older brother. You know, I mean, Judah is maybe in his 50s when this happened. Is older than Joseph, maybe. I can tell you how old is he. So 19 years old from the marriage of Jacob to Rachel, he got Joseph. And Joseph, so it would be maybe, I might be mistaken, so 16 years difference between 17 and add 16 to it as 33, 34. I'm wrong. So 34, 35, that's Judah. I'm wrong. So 35, Judah could not, be solid, be given. So Joseph had not entertained that. So when it came to the physical action, if the devil is knowing what he's doing, he marinates a person, keep hammering them with thoughts, so that the heart accepts what the temptation is doing, and then when the heart accepts it, the body will follow. So when she came, when the time came for him to be tested physically, he responded exactly the same way he was been responding in his heart. He doesn't give a chance. You want that shirt? You're holding too tight to it. Okay, take it. Take it. I'm leaving. There's a very interesting song from the Byzantine Church in Holy Week, they have a very big section on Joseph and Joseph temptation. So they said this, and I love that song. The serpent, they say, the serpent has found a second Eve in the Egyptian woman and sought the fall of Joseph. The serpent was seeking the fall of Joseph as the serpent sought the fall of Adam. So the serpent found the second Eve in the Egyptian woman and sought the fall of Joseph. But Joseph, fleeing from sin, he didn't respond, he didn't argue, he didn't say anything, he just left. Right? Joseph, fleeing from sin, left his garment with her. He fled naked, but not ashamed, as Adam before the fall. It's a big, it's one of the saints, of course, but the Byzantine Church sing it in Holy Week. They say that Joseph actually fled naked. You don't give too many garments to a slave. You give them something to cover them. So when the shirt was taken, he was naked. He ran. He didn't care. He's naked, but he's not ashamed. Because what would make Joseph, or what made Adam hide and be ashamed, is not the nakedness. It is the disobedience of God that made him feel the nakedness and feel the shame. So Joseph was not ashamed. And in this case, Joseph brought us back to the image of the glory of man undimmed before the sin, the image of honor, that no nakedness and no one can strip him of it. So this is the beauty of that temptation. It will always be an icon of the saintly soul that does not respond in any degree to sin. That's the martyr right there. The martyrs who did not flinch, they did not move, they didn't shake, and they stayed in their ground. It doesn't matter what happens to them. They know that it's only temporary and it will pass. Holding the garment in her hand was almost like a proof that Joseph had tried something, which is a lie. And here you have the question, how come her husband didn't kill him? You know, why would Potiphar not execute Joseph on the spot? It's his slave, and slaves is a property of the owner. He can do anything with them. And there is many answers to this. Why would he just imprison him? Many people had tried to solve this mystery, and they said, and usually, if a man of great degree like Potiphar, something like this happened in his house, they would execute the slave on the spot and get themselves rid of the scandal. Why would have Joseph linger around so that people can actually whisper about Potiphar whenever they see Joseph? Someone said most probably Potiphar had knowledge of the crush of his wife on the slaves. It's not the first time. Seems like that's authority. She has authority and she could do whatever she pleases. Second thing, that Potiphar loved Joseph as a son and he didn't want to kill him. He understood Joseph as a noble man, someone who would not do something like this. As if Potiphar, long time with Joseph, had given him an insight into his heart. And he couldn't solve the mystery of what happened, and he wanted to see what the story is and give himself time. In any occasion, this was God's way of protecting Joseph and showing to us, as we read the story, that God watching over people who would stick with him. Last thing I want to talk about is the statement that Joseph made. What did Joseph say? How can I do this evil thing and sin against God? How can I? And here I hear a tone of self-respect, a tone of value. Joseph values himself. He doesn't think of himself as not important. Because when someone says, how can I? How can I do this? Sometimes I hear kids and people say, oh, what would they say? It's not, somebody would say, like, it's not Joni who would be talked like this too. So they think of themselves above the treatment. It's not, Josh Moll who would be treated this way. It's not, Ashley Bibbin who would be ditched like that. That's not how he thinks. No, he's saying, how could I do? It's not about what's done to him. So this is very interesting to actually meditate upon. It is what we do that define us. Because what has been done to Joseph is horrible. And he never thought about it as defining him. So he didn't ask the question, how could that be done to me? No, he's saying, how could I do this awful thing and sin against the Lord? So this actually makes me think about that actually what defines us is not what is done to us. It's not our circumstances. It's not what people is doing or thinking or saying to us. I had a couple of moments ago, I had a woman calling before the seminary, and she was crying. She said someone called her and threatened her, and said that she is done something awful or done this and done that. I kept telling her, that doesn't define you. Did you do what she said? No, she said, I didn't do any of it. I said, okay, if you have done something wrong, you should cry. And if you've been mislabeled and mistreated, that doesn't define you. We get through this. Sometimes with authority, sometimes with friends, sometimes with the church. And that's horrible, the way it is. But where is God in all this? Yeah, God is looking at us. See, if we have done something wrong, that's what defines us, not what is done to us. So please think about this and think about it hard. Joseph asks, how can I do this awful thing and sin against the Lord? Look at you. You're a slave and you are away from your family. You've been treated harshly by your brothers. You've been, mistreated. What is the secret? To conclude, what is the secret, Joseph? What is your secret? And then you bring in God, while I don't think you saw God. You don't know God. For goodness sake, you have never seen him. But he would say, no, but my loving Father, whom I adore and consider very highly, the love of my life, had seen God. He told me a lot about him. I know God. You're going to ask, how do you know God? I said, through my Father's. I saw God with my Father's eyes. I've heard God with my Father's ears. I experienced God with my Father's wrestling with him. I know God. And this, to conclude, is the grace of the Father. That relationship between a father and a son, when it is right, and there's no sickness in it, either from the father or the son, it brings a lot of grace to the child. A lot of grace. Fathers, you hear me, you have a responsibility. And if you had done it, God bless you and God reward you. And if you are preparing to be father or mother, your love and commitment to bring your experience with God to the children is big thing. And this is what Jesus came to the world to say, to bring us the love of the Father. He is the only begotten Son, who is so much loved that the only thing the Father would say about him, whenever the Father spoke in the New Testament, this is what the Father said, you are my beloved Son. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Beautiful. And this love would be tested in the case of Christ when he's sent to the cross. He will be tested. For the sake of the love of his Father, Christ will endure the cross. And the book of Hebrews would say, he learned obedience from what he had suffered. That's how he showed us how much the Father loved him. And that is the grace of the only begotten Son that is saving us. We are saved by that grace. I've had spelled over what I need to spell because it's 10:02. We should stop here. If you have any questions or an idea or meditation, because Joseph is going to continue with us to depict to us Christ. We're going to see what happens in the next chapter or two, and then you will be surprised how Joseph actually is going to bring even more. Until now, he's bringing us what we know, but St. Paul is going to say he's going to bring you things that you don't know. Okay, let's say our Father. And then in the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory now and forever. May the love of God the Father and grace of His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you. Peace be with you. Good night.